Paradise, Louisiana, and Gary, you know, this is the time of the year where you get on what some people call the roller coaster of fishing. You go from ice cold conditions to warm-up conditions. Last week we had in the mid-70s. We had some of that warm, humid weather. So you got to be prepared to address any of it. And in case you get to fish on one of those very cold days following a front, I got a chance to fish with a couple of real professionals, Captain Mike Gallo, Captain Chris Roberts, in an area, some people call it the Mr. Go, some people call it the Intercoastal Waterway. It's kind of where the two meet. You hear about the Great Wall of Chalmette. It's out in that area there on a very, very cold day. Water temperatures plunging below that 50-degree mark, started off down in the 40s.
Where do y'all put in when y'all go there?
Well, there's a lot of places you could.
Where do you put in?
Well, we left, actually, Mike launched at his lodge over there in Slidell on Salt Bayou and made the run all the way across. But there's a lot closer places to launch. Seabrook Bridge is one. But if you launch at the Seabrook launch, then you run the risk of that train bridge being down, and you could get caught in there before you can get in the Intercoastal Waterway. The Chef Harbor Marina is a fairly close launch. Right there across from Venetian Isles, right at the foot of the Chef Bridge, you can put in right there. Got a good back-down launch there. Got some supplies you can get. You can also launch over there in Chalmette. And hopefully if you can get through the locks, if they're not closed, you can come through that. It kind of depends on what's open and what's closed. But there's a number of ways to get there. It's deep water, and I think that's the key why we ended up catching some fish there. There's a couple of ledges, and if you can locate those ledges, those trout will hang right off the edge of it.
Good trout.
Some decent trout, and I don't think we had a throwback. It wasn't real quick action, though. You got to work for them, and it was one of those days where we could not get a pronounced technique or pattern to catch those fish. Sometimes they wanted barely move, just a little twitch. Sometimes they wanted hop. Sometimes they might want it double hop. Sometimes a real hard popping motion. Sometimes just a steady retrieve. I did everything and got a couple of bites on several of those. And it was the same thing for Chris and Mike. We could not get a definitive pattern. One thing we did find, the fish were deep. No matter what technique you used, you were catching them just on or off the bottom. And as the day wore on, temperature crept up a little bit. There was another boat that was in communication with us. They stayed longer because they didn't have to get in and edit anything that they were doing, so they ended up with a nice catch because the water warmed up even more. That's the keys. Warm, clean water, and you got to get that depth when there's conditions like that. Now, that all changed. We had fish went crazy and moved up into the flats onto the oyster reefs after that warm-up, but you got another cold front coming, so you just got to apply your technique to the current conditions you got that day.
Yeah, you know, that's what I was talking once before about the difference between people that are retired and the people that are working and they got a certain day off.
Yeah, they got to fish.
You almost fit that thing. You know, there's times when you can go whenever you want, but your Thursday has to be you have to go
from Thursday morning daylight till about noon or 1 o'clock at the latest. That's the little window of opportunity I've got, and I got to deal with whatever we get. You've been so fortunate,
but you've always been, and I guess you guys, but you've always been able to come up to bring some fish home and do some video. You know, so you have something similar to that. So when you first realized that, ooh, this was going to be a bad day, there's sometimes that you say, I'm going to give up. I'm going to see if I got to
that happened last week. We had a front system. Actually, it would have been dangerous to be out there. And instead of that, Dudley and I, you know, decided, hey, discretion's a better part of valor. We stayed back, and we did a little feature on fishing baits, some of his baits and the names of how they got them. But for the most part, when you're fishing with professionals who are there every day, you should have the flexibility to move around. I actually had other places planned, but there was nothing going on there, and that best shot was that deep water in the Intercoastal and the Mr. Go. We'll take you there now and give you some more information from Captain Mike Gallo on fishing under those particular conditions. And believe me, we're not through with icebox fishing yet. Here he is, Captain Mike Gallo, Angling Adventures of Louisiana. Now, if you were watching the weather this morning, Laura Buckdale said anybody going fishing today was hardcore. Well, I don't know if we're hardcore, but we're coldcore. Fish ain't too warm either.
Well, we fished today in the Mr. Go. It's deep water, and the deeper water is going to have a more consistent temperature. And once the fish get acclimated to that temperature, you'll find them in that temperature range. On our way over here, we crossed water that was 49 degrees, 50 degrees, and the Mr. Go's been at 53. A little bit warmer, and I think they're accustomed to it. So this is where we caught them yesterday. We came back today, and this is where we caught them again today.
wall's about to go over right here. Got it. There we go. I don't know.
Started thinking probably hook might go.
Hanging low.
Do I need the gaff?
I don't think you need a gaff. I tell you what, you need the fish fry. Oh, look at that fish. Yeah, baby. Winter trout.
Yeah, the only thing I could share with you that I think was going to help is we definitely found them on the bottom. Sometimes we hopped our lures, sometimes we dragged them, sometimes we kind of slow rolled them across the bottom, but it was always on the bottom where we caught the majority of our fish. So I would say the bottom half of the water, and our fish today were in mostly 8 to 12 feet of water. I do use braided line, a little bit heavier jig head because we're fishing kind of deep water. Real sensitive rod tip is going to certainly be a plus. The braided line, I think, really helps me tremendously.
Where's his ruler here? Let's see. How's he looking? Today there was no live bait, although if we would have had it, it probably would have caught fish. The two hot baits today were soft plastics. The Deadly Dudley cotton candy and also the H&H purple with the white tail. Fished on a jig head, bounced slowly off the bottom, sometimes hopping it. No rhyme or reason. When you feel the slightest little tap, you gotta be ready to set that hook. It's hanging down.
Might be a flounder. Red. No, it's a trout. Oh, he's foul hooked.
Side hooked.
They taste the same when they hook their own. Yeah, we were here, I guess we fished about 3 hours, we caught about a dozen. So obviously if we'd have stayed longer, we'd have had a better box of fish. And as the water warms, you hope the fish to get more aggressive and you narrow down your sweep. As I sweep across an area and we catch a few fish, I sort of pay attention to where I'm at. And then hopefully I can really hone in onto where there may be a school of fish. And then once you can locate them and really figure out the pattern, hopefully you can catch a good mess in that one area.
Look at that belly.
Good one. Good fish.
Is this how you swing him in? Oh, striped bass. Striped bass.
Caught some in Delacroix last week. Well, we caught hybrids. A hybrid or a striper.
Hybrid. Yeah.
That's a good hybrid there. It's a trout. It's a trout. Yes. I got him. All right, there's a good fish, side hook, but that doesn't matter. Well, you saw it today, living proof. We are blessed in South Louisiana. Even on the coldest, roughest, rawest days, you can catch speckled trout.
I can't believe y'all brought me out